Hi everyone, it's Lisa. Thank you so much for joining me today. In today's video, I will be making 3 cards using Pink and Main's Be a Mermaid stamp set. And this stamp set was just released this month, June 2021. And here's what the stamp set looks like. It's a 6x6 stamp set. It has 3 adorable mermaids and it has a seal, an octopus, a fish. There's also some sentiments that say, let's make some waves. I hope to see you soon. We mermaid to be friends. In an ocean full of fish, be a mermaid. You are mermazing and sending oceans of love. There's also a matching die set available if you want to use the dies to cut these stamps out. So I started off by stamping out the entire stamp set onto a piece of Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth cardstock. So I actually just took the backing off of the stamp set and left the stamps in place, and I'm just using some washi tape to tape down the actual stamp set to the door on the Misti. That way I don't have to take those stamps off of there and put them on the Misti. I could just leave them on the stamp set and it just makes it so much easier. I am using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, which is Copic marker friendly, and I'm just stamping those down onto my cardstock. So I'm going to start out with coloring up this mermaid's tail, and I lay out my teal color. It's my lightest BG11 and color up the whole thing, and then I'm going to come in with my dark BG18 and just give it some shadows. And then I'm going to come in with my BG15 and then followed by the BG13 and just go over those and then just blend that out with the BG11. Then I'm going to come back in with the BG18 and just put some dots. So I'm just, wherever I put some of those darker colors, I'm just putting some dots with the tip of my Copic marker just to make this have a little bit more dimension. And then I'm going to come in with the BG15 and do the same thing, followed by the BG13. So again, just laying down some dots just to make this look like it has some texture to it. And then just one more time with the BG18 just to add a few more dots, just to add some more in-depth color. Next, I'm going to lay some color down on the top of her tail, the little part on her waist, and I'm using the same colors. Just started with the dark to add some darker shadows and then follow in with the next set of lighter colors. I'm doing the very bottom part of her tail with some purple, so V9 is my darkest, and just apply there to the top and bottom in some of those areas to add some shading. I will come in with V06, V05, and V01 to fill in those colors. And also all of these colors I will list down below in the description box. I'll also have them on my blog, so if you wanted to replicate any of this, you can head on over there and take a look and see what colors I've used. And I'm going to color all 3 of the mermaids the same colors. The only difference that I'm going to do is the hair. So one mermaid will end up with red hair, one will have like an orangey brown hair, and another one will have some yellow hair. So here I'm going in with the skin, and I start out with some E04, just putting some dark shadows on her skin, followed by the E11, and just go over the E04 and just extend it a little bit further down, followed by the E21, same thing, extend it a little bit further, cover a little bit more of her skin. And then I'm going to come in with the E00 and then fill in a little bit more, and then followed by the E000 and fill the rest in. I will go over a second time with the same colors just to add a little bit more contrast. And again, all of the mermaid skin that I'm coloring for all 3 mermaids is going to be identical. So while you watch me color this up, I do want to mention that I will have links to all of these products. So if you're interested in the stamp set and the die set, I will have links to the products down in the description box. And I do also want to mention that the links that I use are affiliate links, which mean that I get a small commission if you click on one of my links and make a purchase. Then I just get a small commission of that purchase, but it's no extra cost to you. And what that does is it just helps me be able to purchase additional products so that I can show all of you here on my YouTube channel. I also want to mention that some products companies do send me to show here on YouTube. So this set was sent to me by Pink and Main, but most products that I show on my YouTube channel I do pay for out of my own pocket. So by you using my affiliate links when you want to make a purchase, it just helps me tremendously and I really appreciate your support. So this mermaid is going to have some red hair, and I start out with the R59 and put some R59 just at the very tip where her hair meets her face. And I also put that R59 at the very bottom. And then I come in with the R29 and just extend that out a little bit further on both the top and bottom of her hair. And then same with the R27, R24, and R21. So the R21 is the very lightest color, and that will just be filling in all of the white space. And then once I color that up, I do repeat the process. So I'm going to start again with the R59, just going over where her tip of her roots are there at the top of her head as well as the very bottom, and then come in with the R29 and just extend that color out a little bit further. And when I do this, I am using some flicking motions, using the very tip of my Copic marker and just using some flicking motions, which is like an up and down motion of the pen. I'm not doing circles, I'm not, coloring it in circles in any way. It's more of a flicking motion. So here you see me just adding some dots just to give her some highlights there and just add some more dimension there to the mermaid. Next, I'm going to color in the second mermaid, and I'm going to go a little bit faster with this one since it's the same process as the previous mermaid, same exact colors. So you see the teals, again, all the same colors. I do put the dots in there after I lay some color down just to add some texture to that mermaid's tail. Do come in with the same colors for the purple on the very bottom of the tail. So start out with the dark, come in with the mid-tones, and then finish up with the lightest color. I add some purples there to her little shell bra. So again, put some darks down and then go down the line with the medium and the light, and then add some purple there to her headband. This mermaid is going to have the same color skin as the previous mermaid, so just coloring up the same way, starting with the E04 and putting some shadows there, followed by the E11 and the E21 and then the E00. I know those colors are kind of going off the screen. You really can't see what those colors are, but again, it's the same colors and they will be listed in the description. I do add some R20 to her cheeks to make them a little bit rosy. And then once I add that R20, I do end up going over it again just to blend that R20 out with the E000. I'm just going over this a second time using all of the same colors that I previously used, and I know I'm going a little bit fast just because this is a lot of coloring. So I do go back in with a red color on this other mermaid, just fill in her eyebrows because I forgot to do that. So here I'm going to color up her hair, and I start out with the Y28 as my dark and color where her hair meets her face up at the top, as well as I do color in behind her neck and at the very bottom of the hair, and just again doing a flicking motion, come in with the YR24 and just extend the dark color a little bit further. I also come in with the Y23 and extend that even further, and then finally the Y21 and fill in all the white. And then I go through the same process one more time, applying the color in the same order just to add some more depth and dimension to her hair. So as I said earlier, I will be making 3 cards with this set, and there are 3 mermaids in this set, and I end up using 1 mermaid per card. I end up making a mini slimline, also a shaker card, and an A2 size card. Also, if you missed out on the video where I posted Pink and Main's June 2021 release with all of their products. I will link that down below, and be sure you check that out because it will show you all of the products that are in their June release, and their June release is summer theme. So there's a lot of fun stamps. There's this stamp set with the Be a Mermaid. There's a flip-flop stamp set. There's also a flamingo stamp set. There are some dies that are some fun summer die sets, so make sure you check that out. I also in that video did 2 cards. I made 2 cards using some of the stamps and dies from that set. So again, I'll link that below, and then all of the products I will be featuring on my YouTube channel over the next few weeks. So this is the second video in Pink and Main's June release that I am creating cards with. So be sure to stay tuned for all of those products from their June release. So for this mermaid, I'm giving her hair more of a brownish orange color. So the colors that I'm using are E18 as my dark, E19, E08, and YR16. So you can see a lot of the orange color. I didn't actually put some of the dark where her hair meets the water, but I do go back in because I felt like it needed a little bit of shadow down there where it meets the water, and I added some dark. So you can see, again, same process for coloring it in, making sure her roots are dark and that there are some dark color underneath where her neckline is, and then just follow that color up with the next darkest shade, and then going on down the line until you get to the very lightest shade. And the very lightest shade for this set of colors is the YR16, which is the orange color. And then I color her face, same colors and same process that I did with the other 2 mermaids. Notice that this particular mermaid, she has her head coming out of the water, and there's some water there underneath her body. And then right above her is her tail, which is a separate stamp that is actually peeking out of the water. I thought this stamp set was so super cute. So if you wanted to use the tail, you can, but you don't have to. I do use the tail in my card, like she's swimming and her tail is sticking out of the water. And I did color up her tail using the same teals and the same purples as I did with the other 2 mermaids, but as you see me make the card with this particular mermaid, you'll see that I end up changing the color of her tail and using a different color instead of the teal, because the cardstock that I chose to use matched too closely with the teal and I wanted to have more contrast. So I do end up changing that down the road. Okay, so here I'm coloring up this these leaves, and you can color these up any color. You can do like you know, orange, you could do like brown, because you see all those different colors when you're underwater, but I decided to go with green and just colored up the center with my darkest green, and the darkest green is my G19. I also colored it up with G16 and G02. I also am coloring up this little fish with some yellows, and the yellows that I chose are the Y17, Y15, Y13, and Y11. And then I also bring in the red, and I chose to use the same red colors that I used in the mermaid's hair because I didn't want to bring in any other reds. I wanted to kind of keep it very consistent in the colors that I've chosen. So I do color in the eyes with the BG11, and then I move on to the octopus, and I decided to bring in some pink colors for the octopus. So I'm bringing in some of the RV colors. RV13 as my darkest, RV11 as my midtone, and RV10 as my lightest. And then I move on to the seal, and I'm starting with the C4 as the darkest and laying some shadow down. And then I'm coming in with the C2, followed by C1, and then C0. And I do go over that a second time just to make those colors a little bit darker. Okay, so now I'm bringing in a white gel pen and just add some white to some of those sea creatures, and I used the matching dies and die cut those out. I forgot about the bubbles, so I do go back in and I color up those bubbles. So for my first card, I am using the Catch a Wave embossing folder, and I have a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock that I cut down to 4¼ by 5½. Just putting it there inside the embossing folder, setting the embossing folder on that big plate on my Spellbinders Platinum, and just putting one of the cover plates over top and running that through my die cut machine. And when that comes out of the die cut machine, I'm just going to open up that embossing folder, and you can see the embossed look that that gives to my cardstock. Look how pretty that is. It's like a wave pattern. So here I'm just going to do some ink blending. So I'm taping down my cardstock to my mat, and I'm using some of my Distress Oxide inks, and I start with Blueprint Sketch at the very bottom. You can see it's kind of a purplish blue color. And then I come in with Broken China and add that right above, and just come back in with the Blueprint Sketch and kind of blend those together. And then I'm going to come in with my Peacock Feathers and put that down at the very top and just kind of blend that in with the color that I put there in the middle. So just kind of go over that with your blending tool just to blend all of those colors out. And then once I've done that, I'm going to come in with my water spritzer, spray some water and wipe it up with a paper towel. And then I'm going to come in with this sheer shimmer spritz spray and just spray that down. It adds a nice shimmer to that cardstock. And then since my cardstock is wet, I'm just using my heat tool to dry that cardstock because I want to immediately start working with this cardstock. And look how pretty that is. Next, I die cut a piece of white cardstock out of this stitched rectangle frame. And then I'm going to take a piece of acetate from my American Crafts acetate, and I cut the acetate down to 3 7/8 by 5 3/16, and using my powder tool just to remove any static that might be on that acetate. And the size that I chose to cut that down, it just fits perfectly within that scallop frame. So I actually just measured across and top and bottom to see how big I needed to cut my acetate so that it covers that frame, because this is going to be a shaker card. So I'm just applying glue to the back side of that frame, just a little bit of glue there, and then adding the acetate right on top. And then I will take an acrylic block and just hold that down. And in the meantime, I am going to stamp out my sentiment. I want to just make sure that everything is centered and will be centered within the frame. So I go ahead and position the stamp set and then remove the mermaid, and I'm using some Versamark ink, stamp out the sentiment, and then I'm just going to sprinkle some white embossing powder onto that. And then I will heat set that. So I'm going to use my heat tool and just heat set that to melt the embossing powder. And once that embossing powder is melted, I will add the mermaid. Just add the mermaid straight to that cardstock. And then I'm going to cut down some foam strips. And the foam strips need to be thin enough so that they don't go over the edge of the scalloped frame. So I'm just taking some of my foam, cutting it down to size, and adding foam strips all around the scalloped portion of this frame, making sure that all of the foam connects from one end to the other. You don't want to have any holes in it, or else your shaker bits will fall out. So here I have some shaker bits, and I don't remember what the names of these shaker bits are, but I will link them down in the description box. So I'll look those up when this video is over, and I will put those down in the description box in case you like those type of shaker bits. They're sequins, and the colors match just perfectly. So here I'm just removing the double-sided adhesive backing, and I'm going to go ahead and add some glue to the foam just for an extra layer of security. And then I'm going to add that directly to the top of that cardstock, and there is my shaker. I just love how that turned out. So one last thing, I do need to add this to an actual A2 size card. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. And there is my shaker card. Look how pretty that is. I just love how that turned out. And then moving on to the next card, I am making a mini slimline card, and I have this piece of pattern paper. This is from the Vitamin C Pink and Main paper pad that was released this month. And I cut it down to 3 3/8 by 5 7/8. And then I took a border die. This is a Sunny Studio border die. It's a slimline, I think it's the Nature Native Borders, and I just cut down a piece of craft cardstock and inked up the edges with some brown ink. This is going to be the sand at the bottom of the ocean, so I'm just adding some texture there. And then I'm going to add that to the bottom of this pattern paper and just snip off the excess on the edges. Just adding some more ink around the edges since I did snip off the edges. And then I'm taking this piece of pattern paper, also from the Vitamin C paper pad, and just fussy cutting out some of the shells. Thought these would be super cute to add to the bottom of the ocean floor. So once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and start building this scene. I ended up coloring up another one of the ocean leaves, and I just adhere both of those down. One I kind of put off the edge and just snipped off the end, and then just building those shells around that ocean floor. And I love this pattern paper. The waves that are in this pattern paper, I just think it just looks so nice, and that mermaid is going to fit perfectly within there. So notice how I put the mermaid up towards the blue solid part so she's not going over a wave. She has a perfect spot there. I also did some heat embossing for the sentiment. So I used some Versamark ink, inked that up, and using some white embossing powder, and then just using my heat tool to melt that embossing powder. This one says Sending Oceans of Love. And then I'm going to add that mermaid to the top. I am going to add a fish. I was thinking if I should add the octopus or the seal, but I ultimately chose to use the octopus because the pink just brought out more color in this card. I don't end up using the seal on any of my cards. I just didn't have a spot for them. I bring in a black marker and just put a little bit more black there on the eyes because when I initially stamped that out, the black didn't come out all the way. I add this to a mini slimline card base. And to get a mini slimline card base, just cut a regular piece of cardstock to 7 inches by 6 inches and score at 3.5 on the 7-inch side. And then I just add some epoxy dots. And that's going to finish up this card, and I love how this card turned out. I think it's so super cute. So moving on to my last card, I am using the Sunny Hello die set. I did make this card in my last video, and I will link that below. I just wanted to show you that it makes the sun with the flip-flops, but I'm not using the flip-flops portion of this die, just using the sun. And I die cut the sun out of 2 different shades of yellow cardstock, and here I'm inking up with some yellow ink on the edges of the sun rays just to add some more dimension to it. And then I'm going to add that to this Hello Sunshine pattern paper from the Pink and Main's Vitamin C paper pad. And then I'm going to add the center circle to that as well. And that Hello Sunshine pattern paper is measured at 4 by 5 1/4. I wanted to make this a solid sun without the flip-flops, so I took a stitched circle die that I had in my stash and die cut an even lighter piece of yellow cardstock. I did ink up the edges, and I'm just going to lay that directly on top of the sun. Now that stitched circle is a 2 3/4 inch stitch circle die that I had in my stash. I'm not sure if Pink and Main has any circles that actually fit this center of the sun. But as I said, this was just a 2 3/4 inch circle. So I also took some wave dies and I die cut some of the pattern paper that is in the Vitamin C paper pad, and I added it there to the bottom of that pattern paper. So as you can see, I die cut a piece of the lighter teal and the darker blue just to add some more color to this card, and I just glued them down, and then I'll just trim off the excess that extends beyond the edge of that card layer. Then I'm going to take this mermaid and I'm going to be able to tuck her in to one of the waves. I'm also going to tuck her tail in next to her like she's swimming in the ocean. Now this was the original tail, but I decided since it matched too closely with the teal in the cardstock that I wanted to go ahead and color up a different one, and I made this second one more of a green so you can see it a little bit better. I'm just taking a piece of scrapped cardstock and putting it behind her head because of the multi-layers of paper there. I wanted to make sure she laid flat on the card. And I'm going to do that same thing for the tail. Just put a little bit of cardstock there as well so that the tail lays flat on the card. And then I die cut the Sunny Hello die out of some blue cardstock. This is part of the Sunny Hello die that came with the sun. I'm going to add that to the center and then add that layer to the same blue color cardstock. That layer is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and then that will be layered to an A2 size card base. That's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I add some of the vitamin C epoxy dots, and that completes card 3. So here is a final look at all 3 cards that I created with Pink and Main's Be a Mermaid stamp set. So if you're interested in purchasing any of these products, I will have links down in the description box as well as on my blog. Leave me a comment down below and let me know which card was your favorite. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more card making tutorials. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.